Hello everyone, welcome to the Football Slides TV. My name is Goodness Eze, and in this video we will be talking about managers, coaches, gaffers. Yes, in some places they call them gaffers. Manchester United fans, Chelsea fans, Arsenal fans, Barcelona fans. I think the only team that feels that their manager is the right man for the job at this moment is Manchester City, because of course they're the ones they are the current European champions as I speak, even though they've already been knocked out of the Champions League. But many other fans of their clubs believe that when you change the manager, you would see better results at the club. Is that true? Is it a little bit reactive? In this video, we're going to find out more about that. Do well to like the video, do well to subscribe to this channel, and put on your notifications so that you get notified when we drop exclusive content on the Football Slides TV. So, let's talk about managers. There are many factors that leads to a successful football team. Players have to be talented. There has to be an exceptional coaching staff. There has to be good training facilities. And of course, the ownership, they have to have money. Come on, ego, kudi, it has to be there. However, how important or what role does each of these factors play? And in this one, we will be measuring on the manager. What role does the manager actually play in the success of a football team? And for this example, we will be taking a good look at Manchester City. Now, over the past 10 years, Manchester City have been the number one team in England. But Manchester United fans might not like this, but I mean, that's the case. However, how important has Pep Guardiola been in the success of Manchester City over the past 10 years? We're about to find out. In the year 2012, a man called Ferran Soriano was appointed by Manchester City and the City Football Group to become the chief executive of Manchester City. And he was coming from Barcelona, and he already had made Barcelona one of the biggest football brands in the world. Of course, you know Barcelona won the treble under Pep Guardiola, incidentally, in 2009. However, Ferran Soriano did not do this alone. Of course, in the following year, he also appointed Chiki Begiristain from Barcelona as well to act as the football director for Manchester City. And Pep Guardiola was, as at that time, the manager of Bayern Munich. Even though Ferran Soriano had identified Pep Guardiola as the manager he would like to take Manchester City to the next level, when he saw that Pep Guardiola was not available as at that time, he went for another manager in Roberto Mancini. Roberto Mancini, of course, won the Premier League title for Manchester City in 2012. Remember the Aguero. Manchester United fans, I'm sure you will never forget that. In 2013, going down to 2014, Roberto Mancini was replaced by Manuel Pellegrini, the Chilean manager. And Manuel Pellegrini also won the title for Manchester City in 2014. Now, this is interesting because a lot of us would credit Manchester City's success to Pep Guardiola, exclusively to Pep Guardiola. However, Manchester City won the league twice before Pep Guardiola became manager of the club in 2016. So, can we say that Pep Guardiola was really the major mastermind behind the success of Manchester City? Now, let's take it back a little bit before Ferran Soriano was appointed by the City Football Group for Manchester City. Abu Dhabi Football Group took over Manchester City in the year 2008. And ever since then, between 2008 and 2012, there was a scattergun approach to spending. They bought players like Robinho, the Brazilian. They bought players like Carlos Tevez. They bought players like Emmanuel Adebayor, and so many other players that they did not necessarily need, or that was not part of a particular plan that could move the club forward. However, when Ferran Soriano came in 2012, he changed that and started signing players that fit into a specific style of play that he knew that Pep Guardiola would be able to implement. So they had already identified that Pep Guardiola was going to be the next manager of the club, but he wasn't available as at that time. They already knew the style of play that Pep Guardiola liked, and they had started signing players for Pep Guardiola 5 years before he arrived. Signed players like David Silva, signed players like Kevin De Bruyne, signed players like Raheem Sterling. This was before Pep Guardiola arrived. So when Pep Guardiola arrived, it was easy for him to fit in. And then they went on to sign players like Claudio Bravo, who was actually not a very good signing, but they were able to replace him quickly by signing Ederson Moraes. They signed players like Ilkay Gundogan, players like Bernardo Silva, players like Gabriel Jesus, and even recently, players like Rodri, players like Erling Haaland, players like Ruben Dias. All of these players contributed to the massive success that Manchester City has been over the years. They signed players with a clear plan in mind. They knew why they were signing the players. They knew the role that these players are supposed to fill in the team, and it helped to contribute to their success. Besides recruitment, what Manchester City did very impressively was in terms of sales. In fact, Manchester City have one of the highest net spend in the Premier League as I speak. This is because while they bought players for ungodly amounts of money, frankly, signing so many players for big money, they also sold properly. They sold Gabriel Jesus to Arsenal for 45 million pounds, and also selling Zinchenko to Arsenal for 32 million pounds. They also sold Cole Palmer to Chelsea for a total package of 42.5 million pounds. This is a lot of money for three players who were honestly French players in the team. Talking about Manchester City. And this shows that as good as they were buying players, they were also very adept at selling players. I mean, these guys knew what they were doing. Another thing Manchester City were able to do very impressively was investing in the infrastructure of the club. They already had the Etihad Stadium, also known as the City of Manchester Stadium, built in 2003 when they moved from Main Road to the Etihad Stadium. However, it wasn't as expanded as it is now. Manchester City Stadium, as at that time, was about 45,000 capacity, but now is about 60,000 capacity, which means that they have expanded the stadium and worked on the infrastructure. Also, another very important point we must mention is the fact that the City Football Academy has grown from being nothing to being one of the best academies in the world, having produced two of the best players in the Premier League this season, Phil Foden and Cole Palmer. Both of these players were produced and honed by the City Football Academy. This shows that a lot of work has gone behind the scenes in the Manchester City setup. So we cannot only attribute the success of the team to Pep Guardiola. All right, now let's talk about Pep Guardiola. See, let's not even get it twisted. Pep Guardiola is one of the best managers to have ever graced the earth. For me personally, he's the best manager of all time behind Sir Alex Ferguson. However, like I've mentioned earlier, he's not the only reason why Manchester City has been so successful. Of course, Pep Guardiola, we know how tactically astute he is. We know how well he's able to, shuffle between tactics. He has invented so many things in football, so many tactical things in football, things like the sweeper keeper, things like inverted fullbacks, false fullbacks. All of these things are inventions of Pep Guardiola. And even recently, we saw him using the likes of John Stones in midfield, which he used to win the treble last season. And now this season, it is Manuel Akanji he has been using in the midfield. Come on, that man is good. Let's not even get it twisted. He's really good. However, what I'm trying to say is that Pep Guardiola has not been the only reason why Manchester City has been successful. The Manchester City team is an amazing team. And trust me, if it wasn't Pep Guardiola in charge of that team could still do so much of what it is doing today. And if you take Pep Guardiola and you put Pep Guardiola in, for instance, Manchester United's team, tell me, between me and you, do you think he will win the treble? Answer it in your mind. Let's talk about Manchester United now. Manchester United, since Sir Alex Ferguson retired in 2013, have been a mess. And trust me, using a mess is actually an understatement because this club has been in shambles. Since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, Ed Woodward was appointed the chief executive officer of Manchester United by the Glazers. And ever since then, Ed Woodward refused to appoint a director of football. And we saw Ed Woodward going on to make signings that wasn't football oriented. There were so many things that Ed Woodward did which he should not have done for a club like Manchester United. Manchester United, when Sir Alex Ferguson retired, had an aging team, had old players, the likes of Nemanja Vidic, the likes of Rio Ferdinand, and the likes of Wayne Rooney. These players were the core of the team when Sir Alex Ferguson was there, but the players were already aging. And what Ed Woodward should have done as at that time was to sign younger players who could fill into the shoes of these older ones so that there wouldn't be a breakdown of the team. However, he didn't do that, and he went on signing making expensive buys which did not really fit into the philosophy of what Manchester United have been for the over 20 amazing years that Sir Alex Ferguson was manager of the club. He bought some very interesting players like Paul Pogba, like Angel Di Maria, like Juan Mata, to varying degrees of success. But the most important thing that he did, or he did not do, was that there was no clear plan and structure. Now, like I talked about Manchester City, there was a plan. Even before Pep Guardiola became the manager, there was already a plan. But for Manchester United, there was no plan, and they were moving. It was a scattergun approach. They were moving from David Moyes to Louis van Gaal and then to Jose Mourinho. Louis van Gaal plays a possession-based style of football. He loves attacking football, the Dutch total football style. On the other hand, Jose Mourinho is completely opposite of Louis van Gaal. He loves to pack the bus. He loves defense-first style of football and counter-attacking approach to football, which is exactly opposite of what Louis van Gaal is known for in football. So it's quite interesting that Manchester United went from Louis van Gaal to Jose Mourinho, and then went to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and then dabbled between interim managers like Ralf Rangnick, like Ryan Giggs, like Michael Carrick, before appointing Erik ten Hag as the manager. What you would notice about this is that there is a scattergun approach. It doesn't look like there's an exact plan. It doesn't look like they knew what they were doing. Now, Erik ten Hag was appointed by Manchester United in 2022. He was brought in the summer of 2022 to replace Ralf Rangnick. And of course, last season he started very poorly, losing his first two games to Brighton and Brentford, 2-1 and 4-0 respectively. And after that, he went on an amazing run in the club and won the Carabao Cup, also getting to the FA Cup final when he lost 2-1 to Manchester City. However, Manchester United fans would agree that it was a good season for Erik ten Hag. They saw patterns of play similar to what we saw under Erik ten Hag at Ajax. However, this season he has imploded, and coupled with so many injuries to Manchester United players, Manchester United have failed miserably. They currently sit 6th as I speak in the Premier League, and it doesn't look like they will be qualifying for the Champions League next season. They made a hard work of the FA Cup semi-finals against Coventry City, losing a 3-goal lead losing a 3-goal lead in 90 minutes to draw the game and get into penalties, where they won 4-2 on penalties. So now they are in the FA Cup final to face Manchester City. Of course, Manchester City again. Just like they faced them last season in the FA Cup final, they will be facing them again. But the point I'm trying to make is this. Listen, guys, Manchester United have had no plan for their club for the past 11 years, ever since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And now, of course, there has been a change in ownership for Manchester United, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Ineos Group taking over the footballing decisions of the club. And they have, of course, been saying that they would create a plan, and they've started to get people like Jason Wilcox, people like Dan Ashworth, that will be carrying on to create a better plan and structure for Manchester United going forward. The point is, Manchester United have had no plan. So can you really blame Erik ten Hag for the failure of the club to create a plan? Can you? Well, I can't. Now let's talk about Chelsea. When Roman Abramovich was the owner of Chelsea, we all knew Chelsea to be a team that were willing to splash the cash. They were willing to spend money. They were willing to buy players, as they did not care, frankly, how much they were going to pay for the player, as long as they got the player wearing the blue colors of Chelsea. And Roman Abramovich was famously never shy of firing managers. Once a manager is just misbehaving, just swore kinkily like this, is out the door, is out the window. And it's worked for Chelsea for many years, because in that period they got to 3 Champions League finals, winning 2 of them. They got to a Champions League final in 2008 and one in 2012 and another one in 2021. And it was a very successful time under Roman Abramovich. However, when Todd Boehly took over, it was another scattergun approach, similar to what we saw from Manchester United. They were buying players from all the corners of the world. Some of these players were not good enough to play Premier League football, but this was Todd Boehly let's just give it a try, handing out ridiculous contracts, 8-year contracts, 10-year contracts. But we have seen so far this season that it has not really worked. Now, Mauricio Pochettino, the manager of Chelsea, has found it very difficult to bring the best out of these players. Most of these players are young. Some of them have never played at this level before. Chelsea is a big team, and there's a certain type of mentality you will be needing to play for a big team like Chelsea. However, many of these players do not have the mentality to play for a team like Chelsea, which was, of course, evident in the game against Everton, where Chelsea won 6-0, and we saw Nicholas Jackson and, of course, Madueke arguing over a penalty. There are so many things that have happened in Chelsea that shows us that the problem in Chelsea is not actually the manager, but the players he has at his disposal. Now, personally, I don't rate Mauricio Pochettino too highly as a manager. But of course, he was fairly successful at Tottenham Hotspur. He didn't win any trophy. Of course, he was on a very tight budget. But of course, when he went to Paris Saint-Germain, he won some trophies. and he had very good players by him, which means that if Mauricio Pochettino is giving players that are actually good enough and mentally capable to play for Chelsea, he would be able to at least get Chelsea challenging for the Champions League, if not the Premier League title. But the reason Chelsea are still languishing in mid-table is because Chelsea, frankly, most of the players are mid-table players. The only few players I would say are world-class players in Chelsea will be the likes of Enzo Fernandez. I believe he's a young player that could become world-class. The conclusion we are making from all of this is that a manager does not necessarily make a great team. There are so many other factors that contribute to a great team, and like we mentioned, using the good example of Manchester City, so many planning, so many systems and structure make a great football team, not just the manager. So Manchester United fans and Chelsea fans, when you're thinking of sacking your manager again, think twice. How many managers in the world can cope with the absolute shambles that Manchester United and Chelsea is in at the moment? So my conclusion from this is that Erik for Manchester United should be given another season to try and turn it around under the more balanced structure that Ineos and Sir Jim Ratcliffe will create in the club. And Todd Boehly needs to sort out his problems and get Chelsea back to the organized setup we know it used to be under Roman Abramovich. And that was that. Thank you very much for watching, and if you're still here, do well to like the video, do well to subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you get notified when we have new content coming out. There are amazing content that we have planned, and we would love you to be right here so that you can enjoy these exclusive content that we have planned on the Football Slides TV. Also, if you would love to share your thoughts about anything I have just mentioned so far in the video, do well to drop a comment in the comment box, and I'll be right there to reply you, and we can have a discussion.